Hey there everyone, it's Miss G. This is the video of me doing Lesson 8's reading, which is selections from chapter 20. So today our goal was to identify the point of view of several passages and to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each point of view. So we just learned about the point of views. Today we're going to be looking at kind of a larger section of Frankenstein, but you're going to notice I'm going to start giving you more summaries. There's kind of a whole storyline I'm sort of cutting out for you guys, so you'll see we're skipping over some stuff. But today your focus skill is to highlight 3 to 5 examples of point of view. And so which perspective, which character are we hearing through? What kind of things would we only learn from their perspective? And then in the focus skill at the end, you're going to just give me 2 to 3 sentences in which you identify the point of view and discuss the advantages and disadvantages of that. Okay, so first, chapters 18 through 19 are some summaries. But to quickly sum up last chapter, you were to read chapter 17 on your own, where the creature presents his demand from Victor. And basically, he tells him, if you make me a partner, if you make me a wife, a woman creature, I will leave humanity forever. I will go live in South America and we will eat berries and we will be alone and we won't cause anyone harm. But if you don't listen to my wishes, then I am going to wreak havoc and kill all of your family and tons of other people. So Victor tells him yes. Um, and now we have chapter 18 talks about after spending several days alone considering the creature's request, Victor's father tells him that he and his mother always hoped Victor would marry Elizabeth. Remember, Elizabeth is the young girl they took in as kind of a foster child that he's always called his cousin, but he's always loved her. Victor assures him that this is still his intention, but he tells him that there is something he must do before his engagement. So he needs to create the creature's partner before he can marry Elizabeth. Victor heads off to England to gather the necessary supplies and takes with him Henry Clerval, who he hopes will distract him from his sorrow. Remember, Henry is his best friend who comes and takes care of him after he created the creature and made himself sick when he was in college. Then, chapter 19. Victor and Henry travel through England and Scotland. Victor urges Henry to stay with an acquaintance of his in Scotland while he goes on a private tour. Henry agrees, and during this time, Victor goes to a remote island and sets up a laboratory in a small shack. Victor begins his work on his project, all the time loathing or hating his decision to create another monster. So he takes Henry with him. He convinces Henry, hey, stay with some friends in Scotland. I'm going to go do a tour. And Henry is just like, okay, sure. Victor goes to a small island. He has a small shack in a laboratory, and he's starting to create the creature. Okay, that's where we pick up in chapter 20. So Victor says, I sat one evening in my laboratory. The sun had set, and the moon was just rising from the sea. I had not sufficient light for my employment, and I remained idle. So he did not have enough light to work, so he was kind of just chilling. In a pause of consideration of whether I should leave my labor for the night or hasten its conclusion by an unremitting attention to it. As I sat, a train of reflection occurred to me which led me to consider the effects of what I was now doing. So he's sitting in the dark, deciding, should I keep working or call it a night? And now he's starting to think about the consequences of creating a creature. 3 years before, I was engaged in the same manner and had created a fiend or a devil whose unparalleled barbarity, and we learn here says unmatched, unequal cruelty, had desolated or destroyed my heart and filled it forever with the bitterest remorse. I was now about to form another being of whose dispositions I was alike ignorant. She might become 10,000 times more malignant or evil than her mate and delight, for its own sake, in murder and wretchedness. He had sworn to quit the neighborhood of man and hide himself in deserts, but she had not, and she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with a contract made before her creation. They might even hate each other. The creature who already lived loathed his own deformity, and might not conceive a greater abhorrence or shockingness for it from it, or hatred for it, when it came before his eyes in the female form. She also might turn with disgust from him to the superior beauty of man. She might quit him, and he again be alone, exasperated or enraged by the fresh provocation or irritation of being deserted by one of his own species. even if they were to leave Europe and inhabit the deserts of the New World. Yet one of the yet one of the first results of those sympathies for which the demon thirsted would be children, and a race of devils would be propagated or create distributed upon the earth, who might take the very existence of the species of man a condition of precarious or as dangerous and full of terror. Had I right for my own benefit, so did I have the right to inflict this curse upon everlasting generations? I had before been moved by the sophisms or the wise sayings of the being I had created. I had been struck senseless by his fiendish threats, but now for the first time the wickedness of my promise burst upon me. I shudder to think that future ages might curse me as their pest, whose selfishness had not hesitated to buy its own peace at the price, perhaps, of the existence of the whole human race. Man, so he is just sitting and thinking about all the horrible things that could happen if he creates this creature. And I believe um, he says how much time has passed since the creature. Um, he says 3 years. Same three of the concerns he had in creating a second monster. He lists several. He says, what if she's even worse than him? What if she even has, um, she's more malignant and has more delight in murder? He said that he's going to leave humankind forever, but she hasn't. And if she's a smart thinking creature, maybe she'll say, I'm not complying with this. You made that deal before I was born. I'm not going to leave humans. He also thinks maybe if she's also so ugly, maybe the creature will not like her, or maybe she won't like the creature and she'll want to go after man. And that might make the creature even more mad. Or even worse, what if they decide to have children and he helped create a whole race of these demon things that are going to wreak havoc on humanity and destroy humankind, and he's going to be the like person responsible for it basically, right? So that's just several of the reasons. And I would say in terms of point of view, when he says that I sat there in a train of reflection, I would say that's a good example of, this being a first person point of view from Victor's perspective. Because it's Victor's perspective, we get to see some of his insight, we get to see some of his reflection. I shudder to think about, we get to hear what his fears are. Those might be some of the advantages of first person that we really get into the mindset of Victor, the character. Okay, let's keep reading. I trembled and my heart failed within me. When, on looking up, I saw by the light of the moon the demon at the casement. A ghastly grin wrinkled his lips as he gazed on me, where I sat fulfilling the task which he had allotted to me. Yes, he had followed me in my travels. He had loitered or kind of stood around in forests, hid himself in caves, and taken refuge in wide and desert heaths. And he now came to mark my progress and claim the fulfillment of my promise. As I looked on him, his countenance or his face expressed the utmost extent of malice or evilness and treachery. I thought with a sensation of madness on my promise of creating another like him, and trembling with passion, tore to pieces the thing on which I was engaged. The wretch saw me destroy the creature on whose future existence he depended for happiness, and with a howl of devilish despair and revenge, withdrew. So he sees the evil smile in the creature, and just overcome with emotion and anger, Victor actually destroyed the being, the wife, the woman he was starting to make. The creature lets out a howl and runs away. I left the room and, locking the door, made a solemn vow in my own heart never to resume thy labors. And then, with trembling steps, I sought my own apartment. I was alone. None were near me to dissipate the gloom and relieve me from the sickening oppression of the most terrible reveries, or the deceiving arguments. So no one's there to soothe him now in this time. Several hours passed, and I remained near my window gazing on the sea. It was almost motionless, for the winds were hushed, and all nature repossessed under the eye of the quiet moon. A few fishing ships also specked or kind of were speckled along the water, and now and then a gentle breeze wafted the sound of voices as the fishermen called to one another. I felt the silence, although I was hardly conscious of its extreme profundity or its thoughts or ideas. I'm sorry, its wisdom or meaning. Until my ear was suddenly arrested by the paddling of oars near the shore, and a person landed close to my house. and a few minutes after, I heard the creaking of my door as someone endeavored to open it softly. I trembled from head to foot. I felt a presentiment, or a premonition, a suspicion, of who it was, and wished to rouse one of the peasants who dwelt in a cottage not far from mine, but I was overcome by the sensation of helplessness, so often felt in frightful dreams, when you in vain try to fly from an impending danger, but was rooted to the spot. So he hears someone creaking in his door. He suspects it's the creature. He wants to run and get help, but he's found himself frozen. He's stuck, laying there, and he can't move. Presently I heard the sound of footsteps along the passage. The door opened, and the wretch whom I dreaded appeared. Shutting the door, he approached me and said in a smothered voice, "You have destroyed the work which you began. What is it that you intend? Do you dare to break your promise? I have endured toil and misery. I left Switzerland with you. I crept along the shores of the Rhine, which is a river, along its willow islands and over the summits of its hills. I have dwelt many months in the heaths of England and among the deserts of Scotland. I have endured incalculable, uncountable fatigue and cold and hunger. Do you dare destroy my hopes? Begone! I do break my promise. Never will I create another like yourself, equal in deformity and wickedness. Slave, I have before reasoned with you, but you have proved yourself unworthy of my condescension. Remember that I have power. You believe yourself miserable, but I can make you so wretched that the light of day will be hateful to you. You are my creator, but I am your master. Obey." So a very kind of creepy tone. The creature is now calling him his master. He's calling Victor a slave. The hour of my irresolution is past, which is my uncertainty. So the time when I was uncertain is gone, and the period of your power is arrived. Your threats cannot move me to do an act of wickedness, but they confirm in me a determination of not creating you a companion in vice. Shall I, in cool blood, let loose upon the earth a demon whose delight is in death and wretchedness? Begone, I am firm, and your words will only exasperate my rage. So he says, the more evil you sound to me right now, you are just confirming my view that I should not create you a partner. The monster saw my determination in my face and gnashed his teeth in the impotence of anger, which means the helplessness of anger. "Shall each man," cried he, "find a wife for his bosom, for his heart, and each beast have his mate, and I be alone? I had feelings of affection, and they were and they were met by detestation and scorn. Man, you may hate, but beware. Your hours will pass in dread and misery, and soon the bolt will fall which must ravish from you your happiness forever. Are you to be happy while I grovel in the intensity of my wretchedness? You can blast my other passions, but revenge remains. Revenge henceforth, dearer than light or food. I may die, but first you, my tyrant and tormentor, shall curse the sun that gazes your misery. Beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful. I will watch with the willingness of a snake, that I may sting with its venom. Man, you shall repent of the injuries you inflict." So he basically says, you are going to regret this. Now I have nothing to lose, and I will make it my goal to make sure you are miserable. Devil, cease, and do not poison the air with these sounds of malice or evil. I have declared my resolution to you, and I am no coward to bend beneath words. Leave me. I am inexorable, which means relentless, unstoppable. The creature says, "It is well, I go, but remember, I shall be with you on your wedding night." Dun dun dun. I started forward and exclaimed, "Villain, before you sign my death warrant, be sure that you are yourself safe." I would have seized him, but he eluded or escaped me and quitted the house with precipitation, which means with quickness or swiftness. In a few moments I saw him in the boat, which shot across the waters with an arrowy swiftness and was soon lost amidst the waves. All was well, all was again silent, but his words rang in my ears. I burned with rage to pursue the murderer of my peace, and precipitate or quickly follow him to the ocean. I walked up and down my room hastily and perturbed, which means worried or agitated, while my imagination conjured up 1,000 images to torment and sting me. Why had I not followed him and closed with him in mortal strife? So why did I not kill him then and there? But I had suffered him to depart, and he had directed his course towards the mainland. I shuddered to think who might be the next victim sacrificed to his unsatiated revenge. And then I thought again of his words, "I will be with you on your wedding night." Then was the period fixed for the fulfillment of my destiny. In that hour I should die, and at once satisfy and extinguish his malice. The prospect did not move me to fear, yet when I thought of my beloved Elizabeth, of her tears and endless sorrow, when she would find her lover so barbarously snatched from her, tears, the first I had shed for many months, streamed from my eyes, and I resolved not to fall before my enemy without a bitter struggle. So he now thinks, okay, this creature has vowed that he's going to kill me on my wedding night, but he can't even imagine the pain that would cause Elizabeth, so he is not going to go down without a fight. So now we have these two men, the creature and Victor, in this kind of struggle that the creature wants to have revenge on Victor. Victor wants to protect his own life so that the creature can't get his revenge. Now, the end of chapter 20, the whole of chapter 21, and the beginning of chapter 22, I'm going to sum up for you, and then you're going to start in the middle of chapter 22. Because again, there's a whole plot line here that I'm going to kind of cut out that you don't have to read. So quickly it says, the next day Victor sailed over to the main island to find Henry, his friend, and was immediately met with hostility. Was met with hostility from the locals and arrested for the death of a man who was murdered the night before. During the court hearing, several witnesses claimed they saw a single man who came over in a boat just like Victor's strangle the victim. They showed Victor the body, and it was that of his friend, Henry Clerval. Victor screamed and fell into a frenzy-like seizure, which the court assumed was a sign of his guilt. He was put in jail and became very sick. Doctors came and treated him, and eventually his father even came to visit. The judge showed kindness towards Victor, believing him to just be in grief for the death of his friend, and released him for lack of evidence. Victor and his father were on their journey home when he received a letter from Elizabeth. In her letter, Elizabeth expresses her concern that Victor might love another, or have some other reason to detest or hate the idea of marrying her. So now you're going to pick up with Victor's response to Elizabeth's letter, saying that she's worried for Victor and scared that he's found someone else to love. So this whole section, Victor is arrested for the murder of Henry Clerval, his best friend, who people saw a single man strangle him on the beach. We know that that's the creature, right? The creature said that if he didn't make him his female companion, he was going to get revenge on him and kill all of his friends and family. So the creature has killed Henry. Victor was arrested for it, but finally his father came, a doctor came, and the judge finally let him out. He's sick and he's on his way home. Elizabeth writes him a letter, and now here's where you're going to pick up for chapter 22. So read chapter 22. Make sure you answer the guided reading questions here. There's 4 of them. And make sure you pick one of the quotes about point of view, and in a few sentences explain what the point of view is and the advantages and disadvantages of that point of view. Reach out if you have any questions.